Okay, it is 12:04 and I will call to order the May 13th, 2025 meeting of the Missoula Parking Commission. We'll start with introductions. I am Joe Easton, Commission member, JR.
J.R. Casillas, board member.
Peter.
Peter Walker Kelleher.
Mike.
Mike Steinberg, board member.
Tiffany remotely.
Tiffany Brander, board member.
I don't have the agenda up yet. There it is. Do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda today? Any other announcements? Anybody online, Jeanette?
I don't see anybody who has their hand raised for public comment.
Thanks. We had a board meeting on April 8th. Everyone's had a chance to review the minutes, offer any changes or corrections. A motion to approve.
I've reviewed the minutes for the April 8th meeting and would make a motion to approve as drafted.
Motion is made to approve.
I'll second the motion.
And seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Commission, do we have any adjustments to the agenda? Jody, any changes you want to make? All right, we'll go on to our preliminary budget review. Jody.
I will pull that up. All right, so our full budget will be presented for the board approval in June. This agenda item is to give you all a heads up on where we are with the budget right now and what you'll be asked to approve next month. I would like this to be an opportunity for you all to ask any questions you might like answered for next month's budget approval. So this is a look at our projected revenues. Parking fine increases have yet to be approved by City Council. This ticket revenue projection is based on fiscal year 25 ticket stats to date, plus assumptions for the months of May and June. The stats take issued tickets, voided and reduced tickets, and paid tickets, which is used to find a collection percentage. For the fiscal year 25, we are currently at a collection percentage of 61%. We then take the last 5 years of data and 5 years of revenue data and average it to get an estimated revenue for fiscal year 26. You can see here that we are looking at a slight increase in ticket revenue of around $3,100 for fiscal year 26. If fine increases are approved and go into effect, we will track the revenue monthly and possibly adjust how we make this projection moving forward. Next, we have our meter revenues, which is one of our top revenue accounts and has steadily increased year over year since 2020. We project that we will continue to see increases in our meter revenue. For fiscal year 26, we are looking at an increase of just over $10,000. Short-term parking includes the parking fees we receive for hourly parking in our garages. We continue to see improved utilization in our hourly parking areas in our garages and project an increase in short-term revenue just under $5,000. In April, the board approved 10% increases to the permits in the permit category, which include loading zone, commercial, and special service permits. Using these 10% increases and the average permit sales over the last 5 years, we project an increase in permit revenue of $2,500 for fiscal year 26. In April, the board also approved 10% increases in all lease areas that have wait lists. We will talk about these increases a little bit more later, but using those increased rates, we will see an increase in lease parking revenue of around $116,000. Special parking includes RPP permits, boot fees, and our museum lot enforcement agreement. With the approved rate increase for RPP permits from $45 to $65. We project a revenue increase in this category of $12,500 for fiscal year 26. We look forward to updating the board throughout the year about the new RPP permit offering for commuter permits and how that affects this revenue category. Miscellaneous income includes fees for replacement Prox and AVI cards for our garage access, reimbursement for market on front water and garbage bills, and then the miscellaneous lease revenue. This is the most challenging revenue category to predict because miscellaneous lease revenue is generated only when contractors have projects that require use of MPC managed lease lots. We added this revenue category back in fiscal year 23 when we recognized high revenues in in our lease parking areas due to the bridge construction. In fiscal year 24, we also recognized some revenue generation in this area with the Northwestern Energy Substation project. Outside of that, we do not consistently see miscellaneous lease revenue generation. For that reason, we are projecting a decrease of about $2,500 in this revenue category. Overall, we are expecting increased revenues for fiscal year 26. Next, we have our expenses. Here are the known expense changes for fiscal year 26. We are still working with the city on details of changes related to our debt service and payroll. In fiscal year 25, we did pay off our meter debt. And as you all know, we have some new debt coming up for our Bank Street parking structure. So I'll have a full report on our debt service when I ask you to approve the budget in June. Personnel, which is always our highest expense, is expected to increase for fiscal year 26. However, we don't have that increase calculated right now. For our union employees, the CBA contract negotiations will start on May 21st. For our non-union employee, pay increases are tied to city pay increases. At this time, we do not know the cost of living increase request that will be taken to council by the city. We expect to have this information with the completed budget in our June meeting. Utility assumptions are shown here. These were provided by our finance department and are accounted for as a % increase over the previous year's budget. They include increases of 3% for electricity and natural gas, so these are our Northwestern Energy bills. 5% for solid waste, which is our garbage bill, 8% for water, 9% for sewer, and 5% for postage and freight. In fiscal year 25, MPC worked with Blackfoot Telephone to improve the internet service in the Park Place garage so that we can access our Park Place garage camera footage remotely. This resulted in an additional annual expense of $1,620. Next, you'll see the downtown bid officer is included here. This is to account for the board-approved funding request of up to $15,000 for next fiscal year. In talking with Linda McCarthy, the total will depend on the number of bid officers that work in fiscal year 26. So last year's contribution was $15,000 total. This year, the board approved $15,000 per officer for up to 2 officers. So if there are 2 officers, our contribution will increase by that $15,000. For our accounting expense, Brenda from JCCS let me know that we should expect a 5% increase in our accounting contract this year. And we also saw an increase in our budget for auditing services of $1,050 over last year's budgeted amount. In fiscal year 25, we were required to upgrade our card readers on the park's gating equipment. This upgrade was mandatory in order to continue to accept credit cards in our gated facilities. However, the new system requires us to pay a 15-cent per transaction fee on all credit card transactions. We are projecting up to $12,000 in fees with this new per transaction charge. As you all know, we have an option for users to swipe a credit card to enter the garage, which basically is using their credit card as an entry ticket. And we have the first hour of parking free in the garage. We are not being charged the 15-cent transaction fee on those $0 transactions or on credit card entries. The rent charge that you see here for the is for the lot we rent behind Warden's Market. We call that the Midtown lot. That lot rent has increased by $900 for fiscal year 26. So all of these baseline increases will be slightly offset by the baseline decrease of $21,672 for our city contract. That city contract includes all of the services we use for the city. So the Human Resources Department, the City Attorney's Office, the IT Department, and others. And then we also have an estimated 3% decrease in fuel charges that we learned about through our fleet director. Finally, you'll see this movement category here. We chose not to extend the prepaid equipment warranty with T2 for our parking meters. The extended warranty service was going to cost us $32,160 for the year. We are moving these funds into the repair and maintenance supplies and repair and maintenance services categories. This decision was based on our use of the support services over the years that we have paid for that warranty. We have 3 new requests for fiscal year 26. First of all, we have our administrative specialist number 1. Over the last year, we have had a 0.80 FTE, so that's about a 32-hour a week, administrative specialist 1. They serve MPC Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. with answering our phones and emails and processing our daily mail. This support allows our admin 2 and admin 3 to work on their daily responsibilities as well as special projects. We are going to request extending that position to a full-time FTE, offering support to our office on Fridays as well. The salary and benefit increase for moving from a 0.8 FTE to a 1.0 FTE is shown here. Next, we have LPR units for scooters. So our current fleet of electric scooters is experiencing ongoing maintenance issues, taking them offline for multiple weeks and even months at a time. For example, in the month of January, we had one operating scooter and the rest were all stuck in our vehicle maintenance department. We do have several retired gas scooters that are still running, but they do not have LPR installed on them. So in order to create a redundancy in our fleet and maintain the level of service that we expect for our enforcement team, we are requesting installing LPR units on the existing gas scooters that can be used as spares for our electric scooters when they are offline. This will allow us to continue to collect utilization data throughout our jurisdiction, which helps us to make management decisions and expansion recommendations. And it will also help our enforcement team to be able to continue to do their work. And then finally, we have a new maintenance trailer on the list. Our maintenance team uses their trailer for snow removal and also landscaping. With our efforts to improve utilization in our lots and structures, we have increased the number of leases sold, which means more cars are showing up each day to use parking facilities. Piling snow long-term in spaces takes those spaces away from cars. Additionally, snow piles lead to concrete degradation in lots and structures, and it is best practice to remove snow promptly from our lots. So this additional maintenance trailer will help our maintenance team to meet better snow removal standards. Total new requests will be $161,605. This is my final slide for our budget review. We have one upcoming CIP request, and it is to install fixed LPR in our gated facilities. This project is in line with Section D of our parking plan, which directs us to procure a virtual permit management system and to increase overall oversell in all facilities and seek to reduce reserved parking allocations. In order to meet this goal, MPC needs more flexibility in how we can manage parking in our gated structures. We can offer more and different access options, including better data and tracking for decision-making in our gated facilities if we shift away from the gated access to a license plate recognition access. This will allow us to better manage the valet parking improve movement of users from wait lists into available spaces, and give us flexibility for offering daily parking options in addition to more hourly spaces when we see a demand for it. Our current structures have park skating equipment, which requires hourly users to pull a paper ticket or tap card to enter the structure. Leasees have a physical card that is required for ingress and egress. Ticket transports, credit card processors, Prox card, and ABI card readers, and the physical gates all require regular maintenance and are easy for the public to access. The easier a thing is to access and the more a thing gets touched, the more maintenance it requires. The LPR systems that we are looking at here are frictionless and require 0 touches and less maintenance. Those are some of the reasons we are looking to move forward with an RFP to replace our parks system with a fixed LPR system in fiscal year 26. This is all I have for our budget review. In our June meeting, I will bring the finalized budget to the board for approval. At that time, I will include the projected debt coverage, our up-to-date Standards & Poor's rating, and the plan to cover the new requests and CIPs, as well as a discussion about debt service for Bank Street. Our finance team, Baker Tilly and Dorsey Whitney, will all be in attendance for that meeting.
Thank you. Keeping in mind that we will have a opportunity at our next meeting to discuss and review line items and the total budget. Does anybody have any questions for Jody about what she presented today? So if possible, Jody, would you send out the proposed budget before you send out the packet, as you usually do, so have more than 3 days
Yes.
to look at it? No questions. We'll move on to director's report, if you had something to add to your director's report.
We had a financial statement from Brenda before director.
I apologize. Yes, we do.
Okay.
Brenda, I apologize to you.
No worries.
Go ahead, please.
Jody, did you want me to share that or?
Yes, if you can, that would be great.
Okay, I'll do that. All right, are you seeing the March financials on the screen?
Yes.
Great. All right, so we're going to take a look at the March financials. We're going to start in the cash area. I was able to get the cash balance updated to the city's balance with the March financials. The majority of that difference that we were seeing was transfers between different holding accounts that the city has the funds in. We did also have $133,000 that was received from the MRA for their pledge. $5,000 of that ended up being interest, with $128,000 of it going against the receivable. So we do show 2.3 in cash at the end of March. Not a lot of other movement other than that MRA receivable on the asset side. On page 3, looking at the liabilities, not much change there either this month. Under the available cash, the available cash is around 1.6 currently. With the changeover in auditing firms to Eide Bailey, we are still working through truing up some of the asset and liabilities accounts to the audit. They don't track things the same way that Wifley did in previous years, so we're just working through some of that. I do foresee that this merchant fee liability will decrease once we get that worked out. So we are seeing an increase there in the accrued city contract and the merchant fees that likely will get adjusted as we work through that and increase the net cash available. On to page 4, looking at the revenue. March activity was really in line with prior year. we showed a small increase in revenue, an increase in expenses. So the net change year over year for March was about 13,000. And then with the true up to the audit, there was an adjusting journal entry that they made for just under $100,000 that moved 100,000 of lease revenue from previous fiscal year into the current fiscal year. So they recorded it as deferred revenue in the prior year, and then we've captured it now in the current year as additional revenue. So between the additional 100,000 and then March is when we capture a lot of those quarterly leases, we do show a larger increase on the year to date, which really brings it more in line with last year and with the budget. So we're showing 2.27 in total revenue year to date compared to a budget of 2.22 and then just over 2 million last year. As of the last financials in February, meter revenue was trailing behind, but with those adjustments, and we did have a pretty strong March, we are showing a year-to-date meter revenue ahead of budget and then also ahead of year-to-date. On the expense side, we've got total expenses of 1.3, which is under budget. We have a budget of 1.66 and then also below last year, or a little bit ahead of last year. Our net income from operations is showing 968,000 compared to a budget of 570 and then also ahead of last year, which was 834. Bottom line, as of March, we showed an income of 60,000 in March, and then with that additional 100,000 of adjustments, that brings our bottom line to just over 200,000 for the year, compared to a budgeted loss of 204, and then ahead of last year by about 53,000. And then looking at our top 10 revenue and expense accounts, again, not much movement there outside of this meter revenue, which has increased in March. And then looking at our trends for revenue and expense accounts, you're seeing that spike here in the lease revenue with the quarterly leases going out. Little bit of an increase in cash, no change in the long-term debt. So at the end of March, we're just under 21 million in assets and 5.8 in liabilities. So all in all, everything is looking good. This month really kind of turned things around in a couple of areas. Any questions from anybody?
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Jody. Go ahead.
All right. We have our director's report here. We have our dates for Bank Street construction. Tentative start date will be the beginning of June, and we expect to wrap up by the end of November. With these dates in mind, we did finalize our displacement for all of our leasees and the free First Interstate, the no charge First Interstate Bank parking spaces. Those displacements will be in effect as of June 2nd. And we have submitted the permit sets to the city, and an additional permit application was submitted to MDT for a portion of the planters and stairs that fall into the MDT right-of-way. I have a tentative schedule for board approvals here in the director's report. Today we'll be asking the board to approve bid package 1 for some early work items, and we'll talk about that more in the action items. Then June 3rd, we should have a guaranteed maximum price for bid package 1. And I think we'll talk about this probably in new business, but I would like to change our board meeting in June from June 10th to June 3rd so that we can get this approval done earlier. July 8th, we should have a final guaranteed maximum price for the board to approve. And then August 12th, we will finalize our approval with for financing for the Bank Street structure. We have the Missoula Downtown Foundation here with a funding request for $10,000 for the Caras Park canopy replacement. You'll hear about that in our action items. I wanted to give a brief update on our jurisdictional expansion. I'll have a resolution for you to approve today that needs to be taken to council committee tomorrow for council to set our existing jurisdictional boundaries as our current jurisdictional boundaries. So council approved the amended ordinance language for 1022-240 on May 5th, which allows them to set our jurisdictional boundaries. When they approved that, it removed the Exhibit A from the ordinance, which was our jurisdictional boundaries. So in order to still have a jurisdiction to operate under, we need them to approve the resolution with our jurisdiction map. So you'll see that in our action items. Then at the end of June, we will be taking a resolution to City Council for the expansion of our jurisdiction into the HIP strip. This will be after another round of public engagement that will be this month and next month. We will have our map of the HIP strip on our Engage page. We'll do a couple of in-person engagement events, and we'll be taking that expansion map to Council at the end of June. I wanted to talk a little bit about our utilization review. In April, the board was asked to complete a rate review without the utilization data provided to them. So today we will have the opportunity to review that utilization data in our action items. Our overall utilization across all lease areas has increased from 49% in April of last year to 52%. This is tied to the oversells, which increased from 7% to 10% in fiscal year 25. In the parking industry, an area is considered full if it is 80% or more full. So by this standard, only 2 of our lease areas are fully utilized, the East Main Lot and North Ryman Street. Based on this utilization data, staff recognizes that the approved increases, which are intended to work toward better utilization by encouraging people to let go of permits they are not using and only pay for what they need, is appropriate. So during our action items, we will be asking the board to direct staff to implement those lease rate increases for fiscal year 26. Also to authorize staff to oversell the lots by 15% instead of 10%, and then to set an additional rate review for December of 2025. Let's scroll past this because we'll look at it when we're in our action item. Fine increase update. I will be taking our fine increase ordinance that was approved in our February board meeting, I think, March board meeting, to council tomorrow, and that will be the next step in the process towards increasing our fines. They will have to set a public hearing for that. We have a vacant officer position, and we should be hiring someone hopefully to start in early June. That would be our 4th officer. And then we have our maintenance update here, which I'm sure you all read. I've included some pictures of the signs that have been added in the Caras lot, changed in the Caras lot, and then updated in New Park. Additionally, today we had a company called Yesco show up with our fixed neon light signs. So in our next month's director report, I will have a picture of our neon on the Central Park structure, which has not worked for over 10 years. Thank you. And that is it for the director's report today.
Any questions for the director before we go into action items? Let's save your questions for the action items. Good there. Okay. Thank you, Jody. We'll move quickly into our Bank Street early work package. Jody, would you introduce the action?
Yes. Actually, I'm still on. We have Tyler from Jackson here to walk us through the scope and bidding timeline for the bid package number 1. Approval today will allow Jackson to move forward and for us to start construction at the beginning of June. Prior to bid awards, MPC board will have the opportunity to approve a guaranteed maximum price for bid package 1. And Tyler, do you want to come up to this microphone? Joe, can you make sure that microphone is on?
Down is off.
Test.
Up is on.
Test.
Yep, good.
All right. Yeah, my name's Tyler Kirk with Jackson. Ultimately, the goal is to have the parking structure done with the traffic bearing membrane end of the year. Weather comes into play with the traffic bearing membrane, so ultimately what we're doing is we're trying to get the structural components that are complete in design, get those bid out now. Oh, I'm sorry. So anybody want to get the structural elements, which are all designed and ready to bid out, get those bid out now. And then the second component would be the next bid package, which is primarily mechanical, electrical, plumbing. So this will allow us to get an earlier start in the garage, to get everything prepped and ready to go, to get traffic bearing membrane down in September, October timeframe. So with that, just kind of took a look back at our most recent budget of $3.48 million, and then kind of broke out what I see in bid package 1 as far as the structure items and what I see as MEP and maybe some miscellaneous metals and painting and masonry in the bid package number 2. So it's about 2.1 million kind of estimate for what we would see bid package number 1, and then 1.3 million on bid package number 2 coming up after this one. So, anything specifically we want to run through?
So I put up on the screen here the bid breakout, which shows that early work agreement bid package 1 and that total that Tyler is talking about.
Tyler, if we didn't approve this package today, what would that do to change your timeline and how you would bid out the project?
Yeah, so that would ultimately we would be at risk of not being able to get the traffic membrane down before the weather hits. So you really got all the work that you've done up to that point sitting exposed through the course of the winter. So there could potentially be a lot of additional costs there to try to go back in and clean that up during the spring. Otherwise, we'd have to probably look at trying to do it next year. Right now, we feel like we're in a good spot that we've got time this fall. Part of this first bid package is the waterproofing membrane as well. So we can get them on board and get them dialed in and scheduled. So, yeah, as far as any other options right now, I think you would probably be looking at doing it next year or potentially really fighting winter weather. And it's hard to say when we'd be able to get open back up, trying to get that traffic membrane down.
And so with this approval, what's the schedule for demolition and schedule for
Yeah.
further construction after demolition?
Yep. So schedule is we'll bid this out through May. And then as Jody mentioned, we'll try to get this first GMP signed for the July 3rd meeting or approved at that point.
June 3rd.
Sorry, June 3rd. So that'll get us released on essentially getting everything demolished that needs to get demolished and exposed, get bearing pads replaced, and really get everything prepped so that as soon as the city permit is ready to go, we can start pouring the new foundations and get going on that. The second bid package, which again primarily MEPs and masonry, They would probably follow on more so in that like August timeframe, starting to come on board. That's when we're about getting the structure and everything set back down. So, yeah, and then from August basically through November, it's working on the top deck, getting the traffic coding on, getting all the new lighting, MEPs, everything below, and getting that ready to turn over. So ideally, want to get started on traffic bearing membrane in mid-September is kind of our goal right now. And this early bid, or this bid package 1, allows us to achieve that.
And so as light as a commitment as you can make, what are you seeing from your initial estimates and bids and talks with subcontractors, including bid pack 1 and bid pack 2? My concern is, of course, we released bid pack 1, we've got a 3/4 finished garage, and bids come back for bid package 2, 40% higher than we expected, making up a number, of course. So this is the risk of accepting early work packages, is we don't have yet secured a full guaranteed maximum price because we split the project into 2. So where are you seeing bid pack number 1 come in, and where are you seeing bid pack number 2 come in?
So right now, after we went through the VE and the trend estimate stage, got it down to 3.4. Looks like the bid documents from everything that I've reviewed and scoped out look to be in alignment with where our budget was and what this is based off of. I'm not seeing anything in there that's going to be too crazy out of whack from our previous budget. Obviously one of the risks is the traffic bearing membrane and the surface prep they have to do. That one's just, it's a very difficult number to quantify because you don't know how much you're gonna have to chase this crack. So part of this is being able to identify that risk in bid package number 1 and have it properly budgeted and allocated. So that actually gives us a little bit of benefit on the front end, reducing risk. The other big risk component is just making sure we can do the bearing pad replacement without having to remove a whole bunch of extra structure. This also lets us get started with that pretty quick, so we can very quickly identify that, yep, this is going to be savings, or we need to adjust accordingly. So,
Jody, what's been your communication with leaseholders and other stakeholders around the garage about the June 3rd date and how that's going to be out of commission?
So we sent out notice we've been in monthly communication with all of our leaseholders in the garage. I send out an update on our Bank Street construction at the beginning of each month, telling them where we're at in the process, when we're hoping to have construction finished by. So in April, our notice to leaseholders was a review of where they would be allowed to park during construction. At that time, we didn't have the construction start, but we wanted to give them notice about where they would be displaced when the time came. Our notification this month is giving them a deadline to come and pick up access cards for the Park Place garage, because the people who park on the top floor are going to be displaced into our Riverside lot right behind the parking structure, and they don't need to do anything for that change in their leases or to be able to park there. They just need to start parking their cars there on June 2nd. But the people on the bottom level of the structure will be displaced into our Park Place garage, which has gates and requires a Prox card for access. So they have been given until May 31st to come pick up their Prox cards. That doesn't mean that after May 31st, we won't provide them with Prox cards. It's just we're letting them know that their access to the bottom of the garage will not be there starting on June 2nd.
If it's not obvious by the
block, yeah. And Tyler will have it blocked off for us, so they'll know.
Right.
So that's with our leaseholders. We have talked about the construction schedule in the MDA board meeting and in the downtown advocacy meeting? No, that one's next week. There we go. Our master plan and the North Riverside Parks and Trails Committee meetings. We have been in Jackson and MPC met with the Millennium Building condo owners and First Interstate Bank to go over the site logistics and the signage plan 2 weeks ago. And we've been in contact with them, going back and forth about some of like the bank drop boxes and different things that they'll want to maintain access to. And then we've been working with the Clark Fork River market manager to rearrange the market this year to move vendors that typically set up on that west side of the Bank Street structure. And the ATM that usually sets up over there. So all of those things have already been moved, even though the construction hasn't started yet, just so that people get into the flow of where they're supposed to be for the market. And then we've worked with them on how they will access the supplies that they store in the basement of First Interstate Bank. Jackson will be providing a trailer for temporary storage for their supplies outside of the Bank Street construction area, so they can safely access those supplies during the market. For now, I think that's all.
Status of the permit, either demolition permit or the full design permit.
So yeah, permit, the plans and specs have been submitted, received by the city. Plan review fee has been paid. I think Stephen with DCI was on the line. He was going to check to see what the status is on that. I don't know, Stephen, if you can jump on.
Yeah, Stephen, DCI. I did confirm with them that the placeholder for design excellence was need a placeholder for now, as we received notification that wouldn't be required for our for the scope of this project. Other than that, I think we were planning on submitting for the demolition, or sorry, the repair, the early work package repair portion of the permit once this was approved. And we were been told that that turnaround time would be within a week from submitting. So,
Any other questions from commission and possible motion?
So I have a few questions. Some could be for Tyler, possibly for Jody. One question would be, what contractual assurance is there that this membrane will be able to be placed before weather? In other words, what's our risk that we still won't be successful despite, even if we do approve this today?
I would have to sit down and calculate that, but basically what we need is, I can't remember the number of days, so maybe like 6 days above 40 degrees in September right now. So the chances of that are pretty good. Get into October, it gets a little more volatile, and then we want to try to avoid being in a situation where we're trying to do this in November. But as far as being able to, confirm right now that this is absolutely going to get done in September, I can't do that yet. There's still a handful of things that are out of our control as far as just permitting process. We've had some meetings on that, and I think we're pretty well geared up on it. But yeah, I don't know if that.
So a related question is, what other parties have reviewed the contract? Is there anyone from the city engineering, that's reviewed the terms and conditions here?
Jody?
So when we set up the contract, it was reviewed by, it's not Logan, I'm not going to remember his name, but one of the city engineers, and then Megan McMeekin, who works in the Public Works Department. There were 3 other city staff who reviewed it.
So another question, Tyler. I can appreciate you not being in a position to guarantee it yet. There's certain things outside of your control. Do you foresee that there will come a time that it will be definitive, and Jackson would take responsibility to say, yes, we will. Here's the situation I want to avoid, is that there's a 3-week delay. You're targeting mid-September. It turns out it's mid-October. We lose our window and we're not able to get the membrane down. Will Jackson ultimately take responsibility for that, or will that be on the parking commission? Who takes that risk?
Yeah, it's a great question. I wish I could give you a really straight answer on that one. Yeah, I mean, contractually, we have to try to hit the date that we're going to commit to. And I think after bid package 2 is executed and it's awarded, we'll be far enough along. We'll be a month on bid package 1, and we'll have city permit around the same time. So that'll be really the big defining point there that says, yep, now this is within our control, because we'll have subcontractors awarded, traffic bearing membrane contractor on board, and we'll have that pretty well dialed in at that point.
I'm assuming that adhesive can be laid and cured similar to concrete
In what
for the membrane.
Yeah. So
So it's possible, and probably recommend to you and to Jody, that when you come back to us with the GMPs, to add in an allowance for winter conditions to heat and cover the membrane if and when. So at least we know some unspent allowance, but if we would know contractually the risk is going into November and December, but we've allowed for some estimate of winter conditions generated by Jackson if they do have to tint and heat the membrane for it to cure if there's not 6 days over 40 degrees in October. Anything else, Commissioner?
One last question, and it struck me as a little out of order, but I assume I'm just wrong, that the approval of financing happens at the end. So we've got these 4 steps. I'm guessing because of where we're at with the dollar amount, 3.48, that we're just well within, we know that it's going to get approved.
So we know we've been working with Baker Tilly and Dorsey Whitney for the financing package. We know that we have the capacity to fund or to take on debt to fund up to the 3.4 million that is our estimate. But banks and public offerings can't move forward without the actual price. Like, they can't move forward on an estimated price because they don't know how much funding they're actually giving us. So the funding gets approved after we have the guaranteed maximum price. And that month in between July 8th and August 12th gives time for Baker Tilly to post that public offering if we choose to go the public offering route, or to work with banks and bid out that debt.
And there'll be a decision for the commission when we get those proposals back. How much cash can come from us, how much would be debt, because there's a range, and it's depending on our interest rate and our tolerance and our ability to pay, etc. So, any other questions or comments? Potential motion, please.
Be happy to make a motion, Chair.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
Okay, I would like to move to approve the Jackson Contractor Group to move forward on getting bids for bid package number 1 for the scope of work included in the bid breakout and cost forecast.
So moved. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion is in order. Any other commission comments or questions on the motion? Any public comment here in the room or online?
Joe, there are no members of the public for public comment.
Thanks. will you ask for a roll call vote, please?
Sure. J.R. Casillas, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mike Steinberg, how do you vote?
Approve.
Peter Walker Killer, how do you vote?
Approve.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Approve.
Thank you. Tiffany Brander, how do you vote?
Approve.
Joe Easton, how do you vote?
Approve. The motion passes. Thanks, Tyler. Let's move on to the Downtown Foundation contribution request. And I know that we're going to lose a commission member at 1. So welcome, Linda.
Thank you. Happy to be here. I'm Linda McCarthy with the Downtown Missoula Partnership. I am very excited to have my colleague, Carrie Harper, here. She is our Director of Giving. We're here today to talk to you about our next capital improvement project in Caras Park and to seek support from the Missoula Parking Commission. Carrie? Thanks, Linda. Perfect. Hi, my name is Carrie Harper. I'm the Director of Giving with the Missoula Downtown Foundation. I wanted to present to you today our spring capital campaign, the Caras Park Canopy Project. We have been working for a while now to replace the Caras Park canopy. I wonder if, when you all look at this photograph of Caras Park canopy, if you can remember a time when you were down at Caras Park or how that place is important to you. This is kind of the impetus of our campaign. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So the Caras Park has clearly been a Missoula icon. We host over 100 events annually. Many of them are open to the public. We have 500,000 plus people who visit Caras Park every year. And it is, an economic driver for downtown Missoula. Caras Park Canopy and Pavilion were installed in 1997. And the canopy originally had a 12 to 15 year life expectancy. It is now 28 years old. So we have gotten really good use out of the canopy. At 28 years old, it's far exceeded its lifespan and it is time for it to be replaced. Fabricon, who does regular inspections of the canopy and also is the company that originally installed the canopy, in 2024 did an inspection and it was revealed that there is pretty significant wear, tearing at the peaks, some of the cable junctures, and pretty widespread crazing across all of the canopy, which affects its weather protection efficiency. So it is time to replace the canopy. The Missoula Downtown Foundation, you can go to the next one, is we are in the process of raising $500,000 with this campaign. This includes not only the replacement of the canopy itself, but a full structural repaint with anti-graffiting coverings and also improvements, including a skate feature and a climbing feature for the Bear Tracks Underbridge play space. We have raised approximately $279,000 so far in this project, and we are well on our way to the $500,000 budgeted mark. Go to the next one. Thanks. So Caras Park clearly has community and economic impact in our downtown area. It is our major town square park and a big engine for us with local businesses, supporters, and annual visitors, out-of-area visitors. The timeline for our project, we started our campaign in early spring 2025, and it has gone through this spring and into the summer. In October of this year is when the canopy will get removed and replaced, and then we plan to have the project completed by spring of 2026 before the annual summer events begin. That is the goal. So we are requesting from the Missoula Parking Commission today a $10,000 financial contribution to help support this project. And there's one more, I think. Great. And we just invite you to embrace Missoula's heart and 30 more years of Caras Park Canopy. That is the goal, to rebuild something, to renew it, and keep it going for 30 more years in the next generation. Thank you. Linda, do you have anything to add? And does anyone have any questions?
Questions, comments from the commission?
I have a question. Is the replacement canopy a 15-year life as well that we're expecting to get lucky with, or is it actually a 30-year life?
It's the same product, but it's been improved, and so the guarantee is a 20-year guarantee. And again, the last one was 12 years.
Go ahead.
So no doubt this is a worthwhile project, and thank you for leadership on that. Help me understand how we justify the expenses from Missoula Parking Commission for this purpose. And I know we've had similar questions before, and Linda usually gives a good answer.
Well, obviously, as a driver of economic activity in downtown, the Parking Commission does earn parking revenue from people coming to events. And obviously, they work with us to modify parking programs when needed for larger events. Of course, many of our events are evenings and weekends, but we also have weekday events as well. And a lot of the people who come to Caras Park are visitors, tourists. And when they come, much like everybody else, they park and walk around downtown. So I can't tell you exactly how much revenue the Parking Commission makes from events in the park, but we know there's significant connection there. And, you know, when you look at the park, it's surrounded by surface parking lots. Maybe sometime in the future, that's not the case. If we could ever build a parking structure and relocate that parking, but like many other things, our work is inextricably linked to the Parking Commission. The Parking Commission's work is all about downtown, and Caras Park is our city center town square that attracts a significant amount of individuals who come to downtown.
And maybe I'll just share a comment that spurred, and that's, if I were a business owner and my business was parking, then yes, I'd absolutely agree. Like, yeah, I don't typically think of our role as, like, we're not business owners, we're stewards of the public good, but I think what you said makes a lot of sense on other things.
Any other questions or comments? JR.
I just, thanks for the question. I had the same question. I was, as you were talking, looking at the mission here, I guess one of which is just to create a positive downtown experience as part of the mission statement. So I guess that's where my mind goes, but thanks for the question.
I often talk to people about how parking is everybody's first and last experience when they come to downtown in a car. The parking experience is incredibly important and valuable to a vibrant city center, and you know, those positive experiences really make a difference in whether people come back to downtown or not.
Mike.
Yeah, I want to add too that I think there's a sense of a ecosystem that parking is very much a part of, and particularly in the very downtownish area, around Caras. I'm curious where other funding is coming from. Have you identified sources?
Yes, of course. This is a public-private partnership. We have targeted about 60 businesses in downtown that we are asking for funding from. And of course, Missoula Parks and Recreation is a significant partner in the creation and maintenance of Caras Park. It is the most visited park in the city. And of course, Carrie has done a lot of work on a variety of different grants. I think we've got about 8 grants in the hopper, mostly local grants, no federal or state grants that I'm aware of. So we are looking at grant funding, private giving. Of course, our organizations, all 3 of them have each contributed a significant amount of funding to the project as well. And then we have a couple of asks of other city agencies.
Jody, where are we in our fiscal year's grant and contribution budget? And do you expect any other requests in this fiscal year?
Our grants and contribution budget for fiscal year 25 was $60,700. To date, we have agreed to a $10,000 contribution to the DRAW project for the murals on the Northwest Energy substation walls, and a $10,000 in match funding for Missoula in Motion. I have not received any additional requests for funding for this fiscal year's budget.
Should I revise our ask?
I'm going to make a motion before Linda revises their ask. Are we ready for motions? Chair,
Sure, go ahead.
you mind putting it up? All right, I make a motion to approve $10,000 in funding to the Missoula Downtown Foundation for replacement of the Caras Park canopy.
Motion is in order.
Second.
And a second. We have a motion on the floor. Any further questions or comments from the commission? I will, I guess, confirm some mechanics of how this works. I'm assuming, but I'd like to confirm that our money will be conveyed after the fundraising goal is met. It's not conveyed before they've reached their goal. Jody?
So I believe they provided 2 options. One was a one-time, and then one was like a 3-year. Linda can probably explain it better. But I also assume that the funding would go once they've completed all of the fundraising.
So we anticipate we'll be doing a little bit of fundraising over the course of the summer. We have a $100,000 payment to make in the next couple of weeks to pay for the fabric. We were anticipating we would potentially do $5,000 out of this fiscal year's budget and maybe $5,000 out of next fiscal year's budget, but that's ultimately up to you. We are going to start paying for services here in the next 30 days, and we're close to finishing the campaign, but, is there a reason you would want to wait until we reached the end before conveying the funds?
Yes, like other fundraisers, I would prefer that our money be paid when the pledge goal is reached and not be expended and sit not in our account. And then the campaign ultimately be unsuccessful.
I promise that won't happen.
So I don't, another editorial comment is I struggle to find the direct nexus between our parking mission and replacing the canopy, but I am going to support the motion because I can see in general both the Downtown Association's foundation, the foundation's goal and support of driving traffic, both in foot traffic and in automobile traffic, and use of the public asset of which we manage. But I will say again to Jody and staff, I'm very reticent to approve similar requests as this that do not have a direct application to our mission, in my opinion. But I am going to support the motion. With that being said, again to Jody and staff, that requests like this will be judged more difficult than we have in the past, from my perspective.
Imagine if there were no pavilion and there were no events, what your parking budget might look like.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? Danette, do we have any public comment? I'm sorry, Peter.
There are no members of the public to comment.
Thank you, Danette. Go ahead, Peter, sorry.
Just can you confirm you got multiple bids for this
No,
project?
we are not bidding this out. Fabricon is a local contractor that built the original pavilion and canopy in 1997. He also, Mark Wielander, it's a family-run business. His son's name is Alex and is working with his dad. They also did the two previous tents that we had in the park prior to the permanent pavilion being built. So we have the expert. He has done fabric pavilions and tents of all kinds for the federal government, for other countries. He's worked all over the world. He is one of the most well-known and experienced providers of this type of canopy project. He will bring in a cable inspector from the East Coast, somebody that's also kind of the number one guy. So we did not bid it out, no. We are going to do bidding for painting the structure, and we do have those out as we speak. We will hire a different contractor to do the painting of the structure, but the fabric piece will be done by Fabricon here in Missoula.
Any other questions or comments? We've already checked for a public hearing, so I'll move to Danette. Will you ask for a roll call vote?
I will. Was that Mike that just left? I couldn't tell.
No, I think Tiffany's left us.
Oh, it was Tiffany. Thank you for that confirmation. J.R. Casillas, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mike Steinberg, how do you vote?
Approve.
Peter Walker Kelleher, how do you vote?
Approve.
Joe Easton, how do you vote?
Approve. Okay, thanks.
On behalf of the foundation, thank you very much for your support and your financial gift. It makes a big difference.
Thank you. All right, jurisdictional boundaries resolution. This can be a close one. I mean, a quick one. This is literally a code cleanup effort on our part. So, Jody, will you read the resolution and then we'll move quickly into a motion?
Yes. So this resolution will set our existing jurisdictional boundary as our continued jurisdictional boundary. I do want to pull that boundary up on the screen so that you all can see what we're approving and what City Council will see tomorrow.
A better way to see the screen so I can see when people leave. Yeah.
Danette, you're not you're unmuted right now. Okay, so I've pulled the resolution up on the screen for everyone to see. There it is. You all had it in your board package to read and review. What I want to show you here is Exhibit A, which shows our existing jurisdictional boundary. This is the central business district part of our jurisdictional boundary. And this is the residential parking permit area.
And this is literally just a quirk of how our approval or request for approval to expand our boundary and jurisdiction is in front of council. Somehow that process, we vacated our jurisdiction and we can't operate without a jurisdiction. So this is just replacing it, what we already had.
That is correct. So now the motion should be up on the screen.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution of the Missoula City Council identifying the jurisdictional boundaries of the Missoula Parking Commission.
So moved.
A second?
Seconded by Mike. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Danette, will you call, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Let's move on to lease rates with utilization.
All right, so I am pulling up our lease utilization on the screen here. Not sure that I can get it to fit. We'll try. Make it any smaller, you might not be able to see it. Okay, you can see it all now. Can everybody kind of mostly see that? We will try. Okay. So I provided some of this information in the director's report, but at our last meeting, since we didn't have this utilization data to review, I felt like the Parking Commission needed to see it. And in that meeting, we had some public comments about economic uncertainty and potentially needing to delay the rate increases to account for that uncertainty. We do recognize the validity of those concerns, and we are tasked with being good stewards of our parking assets. So while we do not see an operational argument for delaying rate increases, we do have an option to move forward with the adopted increases and a plan to review the rates again mid-year. So what we are looking for today is for the board to approve us to implement those adopted lease rate increases that were approved in April, and implement those starting July 1, so for fiscal year 26. We would also like board approval for overselling our lease areas by 15%, and then we would like to set up a utilization review in December that will give us the opportunity to assess the initial impacts of the rate increases within the first 6 months and to make any changes that seem appropriate at that time.
So this request comes to the commission, full disclosure, a little bit of a discussion between Jody and I after the vote last month, and it was one of our rare but appropriate cross votes. I felt at the time, even though the motion passed, I voted against it. I felt at the time that we needed to tie lease increases to oversell rates and utilizations by lot. What the commission ultimately voted for was to increase rates on all of our lots. So getting some feedback after the meeting and sensitive to concerns and perspective of passing on or asking the community to take these increases is to increase our utilization, not necessarily to increase permits sold, because that's a brazen effort just to raise more money, even more than what we approved in April. But our utilization rates are not close to being full by an industry standard. And I think all of our opinion would be that we want more people coming to downtown, more people using the lots. And if you have a permit, please use it or give it back. So this is an effort for discussion based on a concern that I had about increasing rates without a tie to utilization, as we discussed last month. So if a motion is made and it's seconded, I'm going to support it only because I want more use of our lots, regardless of the increase that we made and approved last month.
And a reminder, and you can kind of see it here on the table that's shared, what was approved last month was an increase for all areas that have a wait list. So you can see in the third column where it shows increased rates, and there are some that are blank. So we did not increase the rates in East Alder Street, Owen Street, West Front Lot, or West Front Street. because none of those had wait lists attached to them, which basically means that even though they're underutilized, there's also not a demand there. So we didn't want to increase the rates in those ones. Just wanted to clarify that.
Further question, comment, or motion?
I'm sorry, I guess I need a little clarification how this differs from what we approved last.
We're not necessarily, my opinion, we're not necessarily rediscussing a rate increase. We're discussing what, my opinion, should have been part of the discussion before, is our oversell rates by lot and our effort to increase use of the lots, and that's defined by utilization. And so the studies that you're seeing up on the screen is there are some lots that are, from our perspective and industry standards perspective, underused. Permit holders are not parking there. So this would increase the number of permit holders that would use those lots. But we're not revisiting the increases that we had approved last year. Yes, Peter?
Do we have data available on what level of oversell we currently have? These lots?
Jody?
Yes, our current oversell across all lease areas is at 10% right now. And in the document that was shared, there should be a column that shows how each individual lot is oversell sold. It's that percent above actual.
So East Alder Street, for example, is 12% oversold. Is that right?
That one is, let me see, that one is undersold. So the positive number there means that we don't have that one fully sold at this time. So
a
the negative one, so like when you look at Bank Street covered and it says negative 26, that means we're oversold by 26% in that lot.
So under this proposal, we would not change anything there?
In that lot, correct. I don't know how we got to 26% oversold, but our policy is to bring across the board, across all of our assets, 10%. So obviously it's contributing to our over. The thought is if we increase our ability to oversell capacity by 15%, staff will be able to sell more permits in those lots that are underutilized. Yes.
Jody, to me, this is a staff, we just want a clear recommendation from you. This is not my area. What do you recommend? What do you think is in the best interest of this public good?
So I can put the recommended motion up on the screen, but staff recommendation is to move forward with the rate increases that you all already approved in July. But then also to oversell by 15% instead of the 10% that we have oversold to date. And then we are also recommending that we review utilization again in December.
And can you address how we ended up with some places as much as 33% oversold, it looks like, 43%?
Yeah, it's all based on the demand. So we had, for example, in Caras lot that is 33% oversold. That lot is one of our most underutilized lots, or was historically one of our most underutilized lot. So when we started approving oversells in that lot, we had a wait list of around 147 in that one. As of last year, let me double check that number. it was 160 that our wait list was last year. And and our utilization in there was, I believe, 42%. And so over the course of the last year, we increased our oversell in that area to 33%, moving people off of the wait lists and getting our utilization up to 60% now. And so we would make similar calculations based on the utilization we're seeing. So this year, a really great area to start overselling would be our Riverside lot, which is currently at a 42% utilization and is 0% oversold. So we're using less than half of those spaces. We do have a small wait list in there at this time. And so we could improve utilization by.
One of our most difficult complaints to address is, what do you mean I'm on the waiting list? I drive by that parking lot every day and it's barely full. Similar to, nobody likes to go into a restaurant, an empty restaurant, and be told that it's full tonight, every table is reserved. We're just trying to use the asset more. And again, this is not a discussion about the rates that we approved last month. It's just trying to get more people to use the asset.
I guess my biggest question is why is the board involved in this level of management? To me, that just seems like a staff decision. 10% here, 15% there, fine tune it, adjust it. That's the part that I'm uncomfortable with, is that we would have a across the board dictate about 15% when Jody and her team are much better positioned to fine tune all those different parameters.
I
So
think I'll answer for Jody and say that they're certainly capable of doing that, and they are the professionals in this that can and should be able to take it. I think Jody's looking for just approval of sideboards because they make decisions every day, all day. Do we sell another permit in this lot even though it's kind of full? They're just looking for some backup from us and approval of their everyday decisions.
Also, I do always like hearing from the board if they feel that an action item that I've brought forward doesn't require board approval, because that does help me moving forward with building board agendas and with making different decisions. If the board agrees that this is a staff level decision that doesn't need to be seen by the board, then I wouldn't bring a resolution like this forward again, an action item like this forward again. So that feedback is helpful.
I don't have a solid opinion as to whether or not it's, not a board opinion. I just don't understand why there doesn't seem to be any area that's actually less than 10%. That is, how do I say? This is very complicated stuff for my mind. I thought I understood what I was saying, but it seems like you're already doing what you're requesting the approval for. In fact, there's no area that is less than 15% underutilized? Undersold, thank you. That isn't sort of being pushed. I mean, which is to say there are some areas that are 30, 40% undersold. I think I'm sorry, I just talked my way through this. I don't think it's a board issue. I think it's because you're already kind of pulling levers on different, lots to make it work. I think it should be fine that you do that, but as a day-to-day. Okay, that's my muddled thought.
Anything to add before we move on?
I agree, which is why I'm comfortable supporting the motion.
So I'm feeling an informal consensus, Jody, that the commission wants you to just go handle it.
Great.
You obviously acknowledged the bar that I felt like we should provide some sideboards, or at least a goal for you to understand. We want the lots to be utilized, and how do we do that? So I think we can move on without a motion and just direct staff to oversell where it needs to be to get utilization rates higher.
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay. I think that's the end of our action items. Do we have any new business? Do we have any old business coming back?
Is new business where we should talk about setting our board, changing the date of our board
Yeah,
meeting?
we can go on to that.
Next month? Okay.
Any concerns, board, about June 3rd? Yeah, I couldn't go out the week, but I can go in a week. So June 3rd is fine for me.
Same.
Okay. So our next meeting will be June 3rd. Please tell Tiffany we made the decision for her. And we'll see each other in another couple of weeks, hopefully with our early work package and our GMP, I guess, our full GMP. And a permit. Any questions or comments for the good of the order? All right, I'll adjourn the meeting. It is 1:29.